Hello, bonjour. Today's topic is about pushing boundaries, challenging yourself without burning out, inviting creativity and uniqueness into both our language learning, business, life, or anything that animates us. And there's no one better to do that than Kerstin Cable. Hello, bonjour, guten Tag. And I don't know how to say in Welsh, sorry.
Shemai.
Shemai. Hello, bonjour, bienvenue. Welcome to Crossroads, La Croisée des Chemins, a show where guests from various backgrounds and ethnicities share with us stories and insights about their identity, language struggles, and moving abroad. Listen to inspiring life journeys of personal and professional growth. Find out how my guests have taken their fate into their own hands and how they're contributing to making the world a better place. I'm your host, Cathy Intro, a certified professional neuro-language coach and teacher trainer who believes that language learning is a process of personal development and that speaking multiple languages is worth the mess it brings in our lives. This podcast is my contribution to making lesser heard voices more visible. So please subscribe, share, leave comments, and anything you can think of to boost the visibility even more. This podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms. So let's get started. Bonne écoute! So I'll just quickly announce what we're going to talk about in the podcast. As usual, we'll start with languages, language learning, you as a learner, and then we move on to what brought you to where you are today in your business and how you help others. Sounds good?
Yes.
Kerstin, if you don't know her, she's a language learning coach, but much more than that, she's a speaker, podcaster. She lives in England, but originally from Germany. She's the author of more than 15 books and the creator of the Fluent Show podcast, co-founder of AI Language Club and the Women in Language Conference. Full disclosure, she's my mentor and coach, and she's also the person who gave me my first chance at speaking publicly at Women in Language in 2021, I think. Well, she's one of the 3 people responsible for that, but I saw her tweet with the application form inviting people not to be shy. And there was just something in the tone and Kerstin's personality that made me do that scary thing and jump in. So I wanted to invite her on this podcast, hoping that the Kerstin effect would work on you as well, that she would have that same effect, helping you pushing your boundaries and challenging yourself, but in a sustainable way. And supporting learners, women, entrepreneurs, podcasters, you just love helping people do stuff, right, Kerstin? That's your thing.
Oh, it's good that you told me to mute myself because I'm already laughing so much because this is, oh, wow. Okay. I wanted to preface my answer just by saying how incredibly gratifying and joyful it is for me to hear that your first time speaking was at Women in Language and that it gave you a little boost, because when we started this, that was a big reason of why I wanted to do it. You know, it was a big sort of we wanted to show just how many lesser heard voices are out there that I just don't quite get the limelight. And often I know by 2021, I knew, because we'd been doing it for a few years, I knew how shy a lot of my first time speakers could be. So, and people wrangling and idea wrangling is 2 of my favorite things. So it's just incredibly gratifying because that's exactly what we wanted to do. And sharing the spotlight really doesn't mean that you lose any spotlight. It just puts more light on everybody. So yay. Okay. After all this ramble, what was your question?
This helping people is your thing. So you kind of answered with why you started Women in Language. But we'll come back to that also later. So first question, how is it being German in the UK?
Oh, that's a great question. It is. It changed over the years. I've lived in the UK more than half my life now. I still have a strong German identity. When people ask me where I'm from, it's always, I always say Germany.
Right.
Still. But I usually will say originally from Germany because I've got a lot of experience of the UK. So If I think back, at first it was kind of exciting. At times it can be uncomfortable because some people have certain ideas about my country, and I'm sure a lot of people from different countries will experience this a lot. So you come across stereotypes that you never knew were a thing. You
Mm.
come across how different people perceive your country in a in an unreal way because you grew up there, so you know it's not like that. And you also get to be a bit of a tiny ambassador and educate people, which is really lovely. And overall, over the years, I've developed this kind of dual identity that I think really suits me. So it feels very real. It feels like I have more than one home.
And how is it? How do you feel when you go back to Germany after such a long time abroad?
Like coming home?
Yeah, coming home, but at the same time, they moved in one direction and you added
Yes.
some stuff on and you're a bit disconnected from like
Yeah.
current Germany also.
Yes, I'm not. I will listen to podcasts and stuff to stay in touch, but yeah, it's definitely not like I'm part of German day-to-day life. That's not, I'm part of British day-to-day life. Coming home, the reason I say it feels like coming home is number one, you'll probably notice, all the road signs and all the way the houses look
Mm.
and the landscape. It's just kind of right. Like everything seems to be in the right
Normal.
place. Yeah, it's normal. Like this is normal. This is normal. Everybody else is wrong. Um, and the other thing is when I work with Germans or when I talk to Germans, there's a certain way that Germans communicate, express themselves, that in Britain isn't how people express themselves here and how people communicate with each other. Politeness comes into play, directness comes into play. And I just like that Germans say what they mean. I find it ever so slightly easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you started learning Welsh.
Mm.
Why Welsh?
People always ask me why Welsh, and I always give the same answer. So allow me to use my standard answer,
Please do.
which is, do you know what the words pamlai mean in Welsh?
No.
It means why not? So that's kind of my main answer is why not? Um, like many people who love languages, we look at a lot of languages and think, oh, why not? Right?
Mm.
And you try and you dabble and you play. So how exactly it started was that I went on a trip to Wales on holiday because it's got an amazing coastline. It's really beautiful and rural, so it's a good holiday destination for Brits and others. And my husband and I in the car listened to this Learn Welsh podcast, and all the words, so you learn basic things like good afternoon, prynawn da, good evening, noswaith and everything was just such a joy to say. Everything just felt
Okay.
so lovely, like I don't know, in my mouth.
Mm.
And so I realized I just had a weakness for this language. It just really captured me and charmed me. And in addition, when I first came to the UK, I didn't know Welsh was real even. Like I
Mm.
thought, I just didn't know how much of a vivid community of Welsh speakers and Cymro Cymraeg, they're called, is out there. And now I know, and I feel like I've just gotten so much more out of this country that is my new home country. It's just amazing. So there are many, many reasons to learn Welsh. It's beautiful. It's an amazing community with really fascinating traditions and so welcoming. And it's actually really affordable because it's very government funded and backed.
Right.
So
It's a bit like French in Quebec. They
yeah,
want to
yeah,
preserve the language, so they put a lot of money
yeah.
into culture and
You feel like you're getting a perspective on history that in England no one's going to tell you, you
yeah,
know?
the
So
loser side of history, kind of. Not the
the Welsh
not
would not
loser,
like
but
that.
no, it's just talking from a colonizer perspective.
That's yes, but it is similar. It is similar. So and it also gives you perspective on English.
Mm.
And I understand more about the oppressive nature of English. So it's culturally added a lot to my life. It has it gives me so much satisfaction and joy to be able to speak Welsh. It is so beautiful. And it has just like intellectually, in the way that I can look at the world and understand the world, I think it's really helped me with perspectives and different ways of looking at things. So I don't know, like every language is an absolute gift and wealth that we get in our life. And Welsh for me has been that.
Why? Because you like it. And also, yeah, so it's something you start with, oh, I like how it sounds. And then it takes you deeper and deeper into the culture and
Mhm.
so many more things that you don't you don't know what you're going to find once you start learning a language. You start with the language, but it takes
Yeah.
you to places that you never know where it's going to take you. Every language is going to be different, it's going to take you in different directions. That's what's so fascinating about learning languages.
Yes. I think people, when they start learning a language, they often think about the technicalities
Mm.
and the pronunciation and all that stuff. And all of that is true. But the real soul of a language is actually the people, the place, the identity of the people who speak it. And that doesn't matter if it's got two speakers, it still exists. So that's where the power of it is. And once you get a little bit of that power,
Mm.
then you've really learned. I don't know, we really learned a language. Sounds really
But you're
facetious.
connected to it.
Yeah, but then you kind of get it and you're like, oh, you understand what the point is. Like
Yes.
the point is not to order your beer in Spanish. The point is something else.
Yeah, yeah. If I mean, it depends. You can also want travel to learn the language to travel, and then you can stop at ordering at a
Yeah,
restaurant. If you want to
that's more
go
like learning
beyond that,
phrases. Like that's
yeah,
also good.
yeah. But if you want to go beyond and stick to it until the advanced level and until you can get the
Yeah.
natives, then you do need that deeper reason of why are you connecting with that
If you
language?
want to
Where are you?
understand people, right,
Yeah,
then that doesn't come in 3 months.
yeah, definitely not. And how was because how many languages do you speak?
Oh, does anybody like answering that question? I typically say four, because there are four I could have a conversation with you in, without you completely losing your mind. So
Okay.
English, German, French, and Welsh.
How has learning Welsh been similar or different to the previous ones?
Very different. Very different. It's the first self-study language that I stuck with. Um, Before Welsh, I was doing Russian. I'd also been playing around with Russian and doing that for about a year. So I was making progress. But Welsh just captured my heart and ran
Oh,
away. um, yeah, how is it different? It's completely different, but it's for many reasons. Like it's a different language. No.
mhm.
It's the first one that I've really done solo led, and also while I was working as somebody who educates people about how to learn. So a lot of it has influenced how I work with people,
Mm.
you know. It's been the first one really where I had that public accountability because I always spoke about it on my podcast, etc. Which doesn't make a huge difference to me. Like I'm not one of those people where accountability massively helps me. But I think it's been really interesting because people have responded to it. So I've had regular feedback from people just to this fact, which is strange. Um, it's also been the first one, this will sound weird, that I've kind of learned in country, but I'm not
Mhm.
in country, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah,
But I
because you don't
kind
live in Wales or
Yeah, and when I learned French, it's like I live an hour from Luxembourg. I don't have to go far to hear French. But this is different. This is a little bit different. So it's the first one this is my adult language,
Mm.
or one of them. Like French, I started when I was 13. English, I started when I was 10. I've done Italian and Spanish, and they're all still like in institutional education. And this is the first one I've done for now 9 years.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not a fast learner. Um, but the one, like that done for 9 years, and I didn't start until I was 9 years, that would put it at 30,
something.
30, 32 years old or something like that. So I'm
Mm.
41 now. Yeah, 32. I can also do maths.
Do math. Yay! Fluent in math.
It's my new book.
There's a linguist, Viorica Marine, I think, and
Mhm.
she says that being bilingual is being able to think in different concepts. So she said we could say we're bilingual in math because it's a system and you can communicate with others who have like the same system as you. So it was a very interesting perspective, like language, music, math, they're all kind of systems that you can become bilingual in the term of like brain,
That makes
what's
sense.
happening in the brain.
That makes sense. I heard somewhere that bilingualism is processing. You're process like it's not like you switch. People assume you switch, but actually your brain just processes everything in two languages.
Yeah. And
And
that's
that
a big
feels
mess.
real, right? When somebody says it, it's like, oh yeah, yes.
That's what's happening. Yeah.
hmm
And then I lost my train of thoughts. Yeah, like learning as like later in life, like 30s, 40s isn't too late, but I feel myself being in my 40s. I feel it makes a difference compared to when I was in my student years or 20s. I feel it's slower, or it feels I have to repeat a lot more the words to remember most of them. Is it just me?
I don't know if it's just you. I wouldn't say it's me, though, in the sense of I don't know because I've always been a lazy learner and I've done as little as possible to get where I want to. Like, I can have all the results I need, and I don't have a there's a deadline when I die, I guess, but there isn't really. I've never felt like I need to reach level so and so at this specific pace. For the longest time with Welsh, I didn't know what my level was and I didn't care. And I only know my level because it says it on the front of the book I've just finished. It's literally like, I genuinely do not care what CEFR level I am. People like you and I, we were learning languages way before CEFR levels anyway, right? Before somebody invented that. So it's not universal. And I think learning as an adult, learning in my 30s, I like that I am in charge. I
Definitely.
like that I can choose how to do it, and there is a lot of um, weight that I can shed and things that I don't have to engage with because also now through my work and through my work and teaching for so long, I understand more about how learning works. I just have so much more self-confidence in how it all works, and I never have to take exams, so I'm all for it. I don't know if it's faster or slower because I just don't really measure it, and even the words that I never know, they go in eventually, but yeah, sometimes they take a year. It's just I don't care.
Yeah, so no pressure, laid
Yeah.
back learning. I had a question about being a slow learner. I think you answered what that was. How you could be considered a slow learner, but more like a no pressure learner, doing it
Yeah.
for pleasure and
Oh, I'm starting a
things
campaign for
happen.
slow learner. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, if you have the luxury to do so. Some
That's
people
it.
study for immigration and then there's a deadline, there's the CFR level, they have to reach those
That's a
levels, and
different conversation.
that's a
Yes,
different thing. Yeah.
100%. But I mean, let's face, like I always say, typically, unless you are moving to Germany, moving to France or Canada, like even Canada, to be honest, there are so few situations in most of the world where if you are already, like me, somebody who already speaks German, French, and English, you ever need another one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, move to Japan, you will need Japanese,
oh
but
yeah, this is it is a complete and utter privilege situation. Like if as an English speaker and then also a German speaker, I'm already so privileged in the world, which means I get to say, hey, I can just learn Welsh and take 20 years to do it. This is fine. Like, who cares if I learn Welsh or not? But if I was moving to Japan, yes, 100%. That'd be a different story. I'd get down and I wouldn't be so lazy and I would be a lot more disciplined about it and maybe more frustrated. That I do feel like I get out what I put in, and and the more okay, this sounds weird, but like the more joy I put in, the more I travel, try it out, and I really love to attend festivals. And like this is a like a comedy festival, and there's a big cultural event, and I tend to volunteer as a steward and ask them to put me like if it's a bilingual one, I ask to steward the Welsh shows because it's a joy, but of course it's also practice. And I feel like the more joy I put in, the more result I get out. So really what you put in is what you get out, but that doesn't have to mean you've got to work the hardest.
Exactly. And that applies to even if you have to do it for a test or for whatever
Yeah.
reason that like, you don't have a choice, but find some joy in it. And then you'll get to that same kind of
Yeah.
place where that you were talking about.
Do you want
That's
a
essential.
segue?
Let's kind of,
Because it's
yeah.
the same in business.
Yeah, that was in my
It
notes.
just came
That's
to me.
exactly in my notes. I have segue into business, call for sustainable development rather than focusing on numbers and language levels.
Yeah, but it really is like what you get out, what you put in. If you put in joy, you get out joy. I feel is similar in business.
Exactly. Yeah. In language, as in business, we want joy and we want to pursue our interests and make things that we enjoy, but we also need to become more fluent or to make money. So how do we
Mm-hmm.
reconcile? That's a balancing act. Tell us more
It
about your
is, yeah.
philosophy about that.
Structure matters and doing things like thinking about it. So the way I would sum up the philosophy, I guess, is that you need the joy, but you also need a bit of discipline. And like it's now I'm remembering, okay, I once went to I used to go to Zumba classes and they often in like these, like little community centers. And there was one where the Girl Scouts had their meetings and stuff. So they had all these posters up, and one of them said, "Have fun, but not over the top." Which is the most British thing
Reasonable
ever.
fun.
Yeah, reasonable fun. But it is a little bit like that, right? So, like, have fun, but also we got to be sensible. Like, we still have to understand what it is we're doing here. We have to understand learning a language means you're making an effort. It's like, training for a marathon. It can be fun for many people. It's really joyful. It's unbelievably rewarding, but it's not, you can't just do it in bed.
It's not easy. So there's
It's
no such thing
no,
as easy in
it's not
life.
always easy.
Mm.
Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes and now I'm talking more about business. Sometimes it completely breaks your heart, but it is about like the more you do have to learn the frameworks and you do have to understand what it is you're actually doing, right? So you have to we have to know the foundations, we have to have the strong fundamentals, and then we get to play around, we get to play with the rules, and we get to have that fun. But yeah, if you just completely waded in and you never looked at your numbers and you hide from that, I think that's not really about are you not having fun. I think that is fear.
Mm. Yeah. So looking at things like right in the eye and then trying to find ways. I say
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah, you got to be
easy,
like a
but
grown-up about it, right?
yeah. Yeah. And I said it cannot be easy, but it can be more fluid, like go where things flow well or try to remove obstacles. And sometimes obstacles are fears or things you need to address
Mm-hmm.
and not shy away
Yeah.
from this.
And I'm very experimental in my business, and I'm quite open to change. Like I enjoy change, but I try to do it from a fairly grounded place so that I know what works, and I will always experiment. I will always do a new project. I will always change something. Um, but I need to have a calculated risk. So I tend to do that, for example, by putting a deadline on a project or saying, okay, I will try this until this date, and if it doesn't work, then we can have another look. And it doesn't mean I don't feel crushed when it doesn't work first time, but there's like an end to it. Or I say, okay, I'm putting this much of my money or this much of my what I kind of when my money comes in, I go, okay, I need this is to pay myself, this is profit, and then this is like the money I get to play with. So I know where I'm at, for example, and I know like with my audience what kind of experiment they might respond to or might find interesting, and what kind of thing is just doesn't make any sense to them. Like I'm not going to start offering golf lessons to my people tomorrow, unless I build a very good bridge. Golf French lessons.
Yeah.
That would
business.
work as well,
Well,
wouldn't
you
it?
could do networking, golf,
See?
business, bringing all your people. I'm not sure they would.
Yeah.
Well, it
So
depends how you
you
present
can
it.
have any idea at all, but you have to understand how it relates to your people, I think.
Right. And that's how what you do as a business coach, you help people kind of figure all that out, put that structure, look at their fears and kind of move past
Yeah.
that.
The fears is a funny one because it takes one to know one, right? So often when people say something, you and I have had sessions, right, where I can tell like will say something slightly hesitant and then I think, oh, I can see something there. Like you're holding back a bit. And I try to, as gently as I can, come up with some kind of question where I go, oh, why are we doing that? Like, is that, and sometimes people will say, oh, I've got a really good reason to do it. But sometimes people say, oh, I just think then if it doesn't work, then it's fine, then this will happen, and then it won't be so bad. And then I get to, and I think it's a big job as a coach, I get to sort of question that and put it back on the table that, yeah, but this could work. And are we compromising something here? And you can always pare it down later. So I get to deal with that fear a little bit. And I think when you're scared of something, just being seen and reassured that it's okay, it's safe, and there's a way out is a huge help.
It's a big
That's
thing,
why
yeah.
I go to
Yeah.
my coaches as well.
Yeah, just talking about it,
Hmm.
it already like now it's out. It can live its life away outside of you and you can continue more
Hmm.
serenely on your path. And
Yeah. And it's
speaking
not your
about that,
fault.
it's not your fault. No, there's many reasons for why things happen or fears are there. There are many, many reasons.
Yeah.
And another segue. Speaking of path, continuing on your path, we're reaching the crossroads moment question.
Okay.
Have you made a decision that changed your life or met someone that had a big impact on you?
There are so many times, right, that you can
Yeah.
kind of come up with these kind of things. And I would say, this is funny, right? I think the decisions that change my life the most are the ones where I somehow find it inside of me to listen to the things I really want and then just commit to them and just admit to myself that that is what I want.
Mm.
So I can't say, oh, I spontaneously decided to move to England because I wanted to move to England for years before I did it. Like half a decade. But it's over the time that I wanted to do it, it sort of became almost like a part of my personality. It was just who I am. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is what's going to happen. But I wasn't always confident with it, but I kept wanting it. And then at some point, you've just wanted it so long, it makes you look at all, makes you keep an eye open for all the opportunities. And then eventually when one comes along, you're like, ah, I'm on
That's
that.
it. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And people around you, they start to know. So I, I remember I once went on a trip to Leicester in the UK with a local like marching band because they were on a music trip and none of them felt confident enough with their English. And someone, I'm from a tiny village, right? This is village, I don't know, the village communication network. But like someone had told somebody else about me, and then for some reason, and I can't remember how this happened, I was asked, do I want to go with them and just interpret for them. I was like 16 or whatever, 16,
Wow.
17. And so I went to Leicester with 40 people I don't know to a different country, age 17, on a coach. Like we didn't fly or
Yeah,
anything.
at the time, yeah.
And they just playing some concerts. Yeah, this is sort of what, like 1999 or something. And I don't know. People just, I don't know. The only reason this happened is because by then I was just known as some kind of nut job who really wants to move to England, or who's good at English, and I was tutoring kids in English.
Mm.
So I think this, I'm basically talking about what people sometimes call manifesting, which annoys
Mm.
me because it makes it sound so, it makes it
Out of
sound
the
more,
blue, it just you wish
yeah,
it and it happens. No.
it makes it more like a spiritual miracle gift than what I think is actually at the heart of it. I think the element is you decide what you want, um, and you kind of allow yourself to want that, and you don't tell yourself, no, I don't deserve it. And you try to really stick with it and say, like, no, but this is, I want to try this, I want to do this. And business wise, something I think that comes to my mind is um, the international language retreats or the German language retreats that I ran, because I wanted to do those probably like just years before they happened, absolute years. And I always had a vision of how they were going to look. But the first time I promoted them, I had one person sign up and I got so scared and I so thought, oh God, this is never going to work. I actually refunded her and canceled the entire thing before the deadline.
Oh.
So we've all had this in a launch where we've just run away. So I did that. Yeah, I went like soul seeking for 3 months and I thought, oh God, this is just, I'm just not made for this. But then I came back and I had the same with my podcast. So the moments that really changed my life are these sort of like commitment or recommitment moments. With the
Moments you
podcast,
don't give up.
yeah, yeah. Um, I was getting kind of tired of it. And then, and I thought, oh, I don't know. Is anybody listening? Does it matter? Da, da, da. And I remember the thing with the podcast that recommitted me actually is the reason I changed it to the Fluent Show. I became the solo host. I became so much more committed to it. And it really made it into a thing that I'm promoting. And it became much more successful, is because I was looking around and I realized I'm the only girl with a language learning podcast at the
Mm.
time. This is not true anymore because of people like you, because
Yay.
of many other female podcasters. But at the time, I was the one like consistent female voice, and I was like, right, I'm not giving this up.
Mm.
I'm not ceding ground to all the dudes. Like, no,
No.
it's just not how we roll, right? Um, and that's why I stuck with it. So it doesn't have to be like the biggest, deepest, profound reason. It just has to be something that makes you go, ah, this is why I'm here.
Mm. Yeah, it connects to what we said about language. And like, I really want to do that. And then you put everything in place. You focus your attention on what you can do to learn more or to do more or to reach that goal that you have in your business or in your life.
Yeah.
And your process is very similar to mine. Like, I wanted to move to Canada. I wanted to move abroad. Then Canada came up and said, "Ooh, there's an opportunity." Then a few
Mm.
years later, I waited until my husband was ready, and then I saw an opening. I was like, "Oh, you know about Canada?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, sure, why not?" And everything's like that. The business as well. It's just know what you want and make it happen, and that's where your coaching helps also, like being creative, not limiting you to things that are in the box, but you can also think outside the box and make your own path.
Mm.
It's what it takes to make things happen, not one moment, but committing to
Yeah.
something, not giving up. Or if you change, if you reorient, knowing why you reorient. Like
Yeah.
this didn't work, but it's not a failure. It's just I need to change something because there's something better
Yeah.
out there.
100%. 100%. I think this power of like the power is holding on to why you're here in the day to day and just having it somewhere inside of you or on your vision board or whatever, like having these kind of visual reminders and just all those reminders of why do I bother? That's a huge trick and value and magic.
Yeah. And note to our listeners, your messages do help a lot. Remember why you're here when you're sending us little messages and comments and, oh, thanks for doing your podcast, or I appreciate this or that. It does help. So please
Oh my
leave
God,
comments.
yes. Yeah, because otherwise, as a podcaster, you're just talking to yourself or maybe to one person, and you forget. Like, if anyone's out there listening, you don't know. We don't know. We never know that you're actually listening. So anyone at all who writes back and says I'm listening is just like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Yes. All right, so let's wrap it up for today. So, what's your next step in your
Ooh,
path now?
I know exactly what I'm gonna do
Ooh,
next. Yes, I'm just coming to the end of something I've launched in my business, which is called the Vibrant Business Mastermind. And as this launch winds down, I I figured out kind of the next step, and it's gonna be really exciting. So I will focus on one of the core reasons I started it, and make that more explicit and sort of work from that and spin off like something really, really cool. So I'm quite excited. So that's next. I also have I've got like 7 million side businesses, but I've got a side project called AI Language Club, and we're sort of starting to prep for, I've got a talk coming up at the Language Show in the UK. And in Fluent, in my sort of other bloggy language learning business, I'm prepping for a Halloween sale. I've had some good ideas there. So I'm actually in a planning prep phase for the last 3 months of the year.
cool. And
Did,
just to
did anyone
mention,
want to hear that much detail? I don't know. Write and let me know.
and about language club, AI language club, I'm in that club as well, and it helps
Cool.
know what you can do with AI because there's
Mhm.
so much you can do, so many possibilities to use it in language learning,
Mhm.
also business, but I'm using it for language learning, and you get ideas from Kerstin and Josh, so
Yeah.
it was a good investment of a year in
Awesome.
the club.
Oh, we're grateful and glad to have you. It's really nice. And yeah, we have not run out of ideas yet, but just distilling every idea into this little tutorial is great for us for developing the idea to the point where we can present it to you and you go, ah, okay, I get it. And for all of our members, I think the fact that we've tried them out and we've written the prompts,
Mm,
we've messed the prompts and improved them to the point where they mostly work plug and play is so valuable, because that's what you spend a lot of time doing with chat GPT and all those things. So it's not just the ideas, it's also, I think, it's an idea and it works, because we have
yeah,
like a graveyard of ideas that haven't worked.
good to know. So yeah, saving time on prompts is a big one.
Yeah, yeah.
And where can people find you?
If you are interested in my coaching, mentoring work, that's just kirstincable.com. If you're interested in my language work also, that is fluentlanguage.co.uk.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. And we'll hear from you soon, here or there. People will find you with the links under the video.
Ja, merci, dir auch. Vielen,
Merci.
vielen Dank.
Dankeschön. Bis bald.
Ciao.
Ciao.